morning. Welcome to our thought for the day today. I want to take you back in time, way back, a long time ago when things were really quite different. Although it might be in living memory for some. I want to take you back to the 14th of March, 2020. Can you remember way back then? Wonder what you were doing on the 14th of March, 2020. I suspect life looked slightly different for you back then. It was a Saturday, if you can remember. For me, I know what I was doing. I was on the Youth Fellowship weekend, the 2CYF weekend, with a great bunch of young people. We were down at the BB Centre just outside Hillsborough, and on the Saturday we had done a few different things, one of which included going to Hillsborough Forest Park, going for a walk, having a sort of photo scavenger hunt, just having a great time. And that was just at the start of kind of the UK starting to take coronavirus a bit more seriously. So there'd been kind of murmurings at the start of that week about, things might potentially have to change. And so we hemmed and hawed about whether we postpone the weekend, cancel it, do we go ahead, what do we do? And at that stage, the advice was to carry on as usual, but to just be extra cautious. So our weekend was filled with elbow bumping instead of high-fiving or hugging, and plenty of hand washing before absolutely every activity. And back then we thought that was maybe going to be the height of it. And actually the next day, the Sunday, there was more of this kind of jovial attitude and jovial times where we joked about, you might get a bit more time off school, you might not be back until Easter time, who knows? And some of the people who were going to work were thinking, this is great, I might get a bit of time off work, I might get to do the jobs about the house that I really want to do, all this free time, I'm going to have the freedom to do what I want to do. And I'm sure many of us felt that way too. I know I did at the start, and I even spoke about it in one of the early Thought for the Day videos. I thought, this is great, I'm going to get my security lights up, I'm going to get all these wee bits and pieces done around the house. And yes, we have gotten to do a bit of that, but I'm sure like the rest of us, lots of us are fed up now. We've been in lockdown for 12 weeks, and yes, there are some easing of the restrictions, but lockdown hasn't been the freeing experience that some of us had hoped. It hasn't really yielded us with all this free time to do all that we ever wanted to do. It's actually been quite restrictive. And as I've been reflecting on that, I've been thinking about how quite often we're guilty of having a grass is always greener sort of mental attitude. I know personally for me, the grass is always greener. As you've seen, our grass is in a terrible state. So I do quite often walk around our street and look at different houses and think, their grass is lovely. I wish our grass looked as good as that. The guy a couple of doors down has some beautiful grass. There's another house on the way in, and every time I pass, I have lawn envy. But are we guilty of that in so many other ways? I think we probably are. Maybe it's a neighbour has a nicer car, or somebody else maybe has a better job, or somebody else's kids are better behaved than you are, or maybe somebody else's kids are sleeping the whole night through and yours are up at all hours. I don't know what it is in your life that you're maybe thinking the grass is always greener, but sometimes it's not. And it takes us maybe to have turned our back on something and chased after that dream to realise that we really shouldn't have. It's maybe taken us to be in lockdown for 12 weeks before we've realised that it's not all it's cracked up to be. Or maybe it only took 2 or 3 weeks. Who knows what it's like for you. But I know for me, lockdown became a struggle. And again, it got me thinking about a story in the Bible where somebody thought the grass would be greener on the other side. That there was something better out there, that they could just turn their back on what they knew and go chasing after it. It's a story that we call the story of the Prodigal Son, or sometimes the Lost Son. And the son is on his father's farm, he's living with his family, and he thinks, you know what, this isn't the life for me. I could be out there enjoying myself. I just need to get the money that my dad is going to leave me when he dies anyway, so I can go out and enjoy myself. And he basically is saying to his dad, I wish you were dead so that I could go and enjoy all this now. And his dad, being the gracious person that he was, gave him the money. And so the son went off to this greener grass. And it doesn't take long for him to squander all the money and to find himself in the pits of the earth, eating the pigs' food and just having a generally terrible time. And so he comes back with his tail between his legs and says, I'm wrong. And on that journey back, he's probably thinking, how do I do this? What do I say? He's definitely not going to forgive me. It's going to be a disaster. And yet, there's a twist in the story. As has been the theme quite often in my Thought for the Day videos now, as such with having a small child, I've been reading the Jesus Storybook Bible quite a bit. And it tells the story in a way which we're maybe not quite used to, but it talks about him having his I'm sorry speech ready for coming home. And as he's on his way home, his dad shouts, let's have a party. And so he never gets to do his I'm sorry speech because his dad has welcomed him back. And I wonder if that's like us. I wonder, have we turned our backs on God ever? Well, the Bible tells us that all of us have. Right from the very beginning, when Adam and Eve were first here, that the human race, that humans turned their back on God. And maybe you're at that first stage where you've maybe never ever come to God. Well, now's the time. Or maybe you've been about church for a wee while and you've maybe turned your back on God and thought, I'm not really sure this is for me. Maybe God isn't all he's cracked up to be, or doesn't love me as much as the people tell me he does. But he does. And it's a good time to see that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And while life now might look like something that you don't want, the Bible promises us that in the future things will be made perfect and we can run into the arms of the Father who will be ready and waiting for us. And we don't need to say a huge I'm sorry speech. It can be those two words, I'm sorry. That's all that God requires of us, is to see that we have done wrong and we just need to turn back to God and follow him. That's the beginning of the journey. And so I want to encourage you today, even if you are maybe feeling a bit down about the fact that lockdown is still going on, albeit with a few extra freedoms, that something better is coming. Let me just read the last few sentences from the Jesus Storybook Bible version of the Prodigal Son. Jesus told him, God is like the dad who couldn't stop loving his children. And people are like the son who said, does my dad really want me to be happy? Jesus told people this story to show them what God is like and to show people what they are like, so they could know however far they ran, however well they hid, however lost they were, it wouldn't matter, because God's children could never run too far or be too lost for God to find them.